What's up, peeps? Joan Williams here at The Distance. Got a video for you guys. This is a post-fight to Danny Garcia and Amir. Bout that just took place and ended in the 4th round TKO in favor of Danny Garcia. Overall, we can't argue who the fighter of the year is. Like, we've had so many great fights and so many, pretty much so many what we consider upsets. And when I see a fight, I can't really say whether or not a fight's an upset until like maybe 2 or 3 years later, because the word upset can be used loosely in today's terms of sports. But overall, to me, and this is just my opinion, I think that Danny Garcia can be considered the fighter of the year so far. I think he's a viable fighter of the year candidate. I wouldn't give it to a Canelo Alvarez. I wouldn't give it to anybody else but a Danny Garcia. Timothy Bradley might earn that title if he defeats Manny Pacquiao in the rematch if the match takes place. But overall, you can't argue who the fighter of the year is in my eyes. I think that Danny Garcia can be considered the fighter of the year. So, but on the other hand, there are some other good fighters out there. Like I said, Alvarez, I wouldn't necessarily consider him fighter of the year. And there's another fighter at the top of my head I can't really think of right now. But I know it's going to come to mind later on. You definitely can't get the Klitschko's Fire of the Year or anybody. I think that the candidate for Fire of the Year should be Danny Garcia. He went in, he unified in his second fight. So what happened was, the fight was going in Khan's favor early. He was putting together his combinations, using his hand speed and his foot speed. But in that third round, at the very end, Khan was saved by the bell. Khan threw a right hand, he missed, and Garcia came with a perfectly timed counter punch, and Garcia is a natural counter puncher. And what I mentioned before on Twitter the other day, I said that Amir Khan is very reminiscent of William Joppy. If you're not aware of William Joppy, this is what William Joppy did. He went in, he threw quick combinations, very offensive minded, but wasn't really too much of a defensive fighter. He didn't have much of a he didn't really think too much about defense. It was all about offense with him. And when it came to defense and an opponent that threw back, William Joppy, he got hit a lot. You could catch him with an overhand right. You could also time his jab. You could also step inside his jab. William Joppy was just a one-dimensional offensive fighter, and that's just my opinion. But Amir, and I mentioned the other day that Amir Khan reminded me of William Joppy, very offensive-minded. Puts together nice combinations and worked well setting up his combinations off of his jab and his reflexes. But in this fight, what happened was Khan got caught by a left hand, by perfectly timed left hook counter shot that put him down, and that was all she wrote. His legs didn't necessarily come back. You do have to applaud the man for getting up and continuing the fight, but just overall, Danny Garcia was too much. Garcia did go to the body early, and then caught him with a few bombs up top, and was being a headhunter for the rest of the fight, and it was over. Danny Garcia is now, I guess, the WBA light welterweight champion and also WBC light welterweight champion. And there's going to be a lot of fights out there for him, I think, being that he's a unified champion in the 140-pound division. And none of us gave him a chance. I didn't really give him much of a chance. I thought Khan would get the decision in this fight, and I was wrong. But just overall, Danny Garcia, the world is his. There's a lot he can do from here with a victory over an Amir Khan, who's a megastar in the UK. But on the other hand, Amir Khan, of course, is going to have to build himself from scratch. I don't think that Freddie Roach is a trainer for Amir Khan. I think Amir Khan has done well with Freddie Roach, being that Freddie Roach does well training offensive fighters, but I think that being that he has quick legs, I think he really needs to be broken down and taught to be a little more patient and use his hand speed, in spurts, and not throw so many punches and be a little more defensive minded. If you look at Larry Holmes was not the most defensive minded fighter, but he had good timing with his left jab. He had stinging, sharp left jab. Worked well off of it. He wasn't too elusive up top. He knew he could evade a jab or two up top, but he used his legs a lot to get out of the way of shots because he was so long and tall. And I think he had like an 82, 83 inch reach, maybe even an 85. I'm not even too sure about Larry Holmes, but I know he had a long reach. But he used his legs and used his reach to get out of the way, and that was to And pretty much, because he got hit up top with a few shots from time to time. But he knew how to use his body to get out of the way of shots. And Amir Khan needs to have a trainer that will teach him how to use his body to get away from shots and use his reflexes, his legs, and his hand speed to, to win fights. And this was an attribute fight. This was Khan's speed against Garcia's patience and counterpunching ability. And when you have attribute versus skill, then this is what happens. Attribute will only get you so far in the fight. And Danny Garcia, did a hell of a job utilizing skill to win this fight. So anyway, peeps, let me know what you think. That was The Distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.